Hello, my name is Hazel Nisbet and happy Mother's Day to you today. I'm interviewing 3 women from our church to ask them what it's like to be a mum, and particularly at this time of COVID-19. So today we're looking to speak to Kerry and to Karen and to Linda. Happy Mother's Day, girls, and thanks for coming.
Thanks, Hayes. Happy Mother's Day.
Well, I'd like to just start by asking who you are as a mum, as a grandmother, as a daughter. So I'll start with you, Kerry. Yeah, who are you in that pattern?
Okay, so I'm a mum too. I have 2 kids. My son Angus, who's 26, he doesn't live at home. We call him Gus. And we have Cello, who's 23, and she does live at home with us. And at the moment, we're isolating with Cello's boyfriend Fergus, who's sort of like now another son to us and is staying with us at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Kerry.
Thanks, Hayes.
What about you, Karen? Can you tell us about yourself?
Yes, well, I'm a daughter and I'm a mother and my grandma. So, I think as a daughter, I grew up with 4 other siblings and I was second in line. And poor mum, she had to raise us 5 kids sort of on her own because Dad was out on the Merchant Navy working for quite a long time. I don't remember him being home until I was about 10. So, and as a mum, I've got 2 daughters. I actually lost twins. They would have been 38 this April. One of them lived for 2.5 days, so that was very traumatic. I think for that, I think it was about 5 or 6 months, but it was 1982. They died in the April, and it was in the September of 1982 that through my grief, and it was quite lengthy, it's when Jesus came and rescued me from that grief and heartache and pain and sorrow that I was going through. So, yeah, I can safely say I think I've been a Christian for 38 years. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thanks for sharing that with us. What about you, Linda? Can you tell us about yourself as a mum and a grandma?
Yeah, I'm the 3rd girl in the family. I'm the boy that didn't turn out to be a boy. So my mum died in September last year. She was 96, so she'd had a very long life. I've got 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. They're all grown up, married, and live, 2 in Queensland, 1 Mottle Grove, and I've got 8 grandchildren, 7 girls, and the last one, who was a very big surprise, was a boy, so that was lovely for them.
Okay, well, I might just ask you a couple of warm-up questions. So first, Kerry, do you look like your children, or do your children look like you?
No, my son looks like my father when he was young, and my daughter looks more like my husband.
I think I can safely say yes when you look at different angles at them sometimes, but they definitely sound like me as well.
Do they?
Yes, and I think they're both mortified to think that they actually have that echo going through their head that they sound like me.
Yeah, lovely.
My eldest daughter definitely does. The others, I think, are more Johansson side.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just wondering, who is the better parent, you or your children's father?
Well, I had said Jim, my husband. When I told him I said that, he was appalled and said that's just not true. So he decided that the best answer for me to give was that we are both as good as each other. But it's him. It's actually him.
Okay.
He's better. He's calmer.
Kerry and Jim in that situation.
Oh, I might let them answer that if they could one day. I think I know what they'd say.
Okay.
I was definitely the best mum, and I would think that my husband was probably the best dad. But as to who, how can you compare different roles?
Great answers. Okay, I'm wondering if there's any memorable breakfasts in bed that you might have had on Mother's Day.
Jim makes French toast with berry coulis and serves it with mascarpone, which is wonderful. We used to do eggs Benny, But because of the meltdowns that would occur when it was my turn to cook it for him on Father's Day or his birthday, we've moved away from trying to do anything with egg yolks and steam and lemon juice and gone to French toast now. So that's what everyone gets, and it's lovely.
There's probably many, but this one's not in bed actually, because I was 63 years ago, and my mum was alive then. So and it was Mother's Day, so my daughters arranged for dinner breakfast up at Sublime Point, which was lovely. And then they actually came to church on the Sunday, which was the Mother's Day, and surprised me. And Mother's Day lunch was my last Mother's Day with Mum. So I think that's the one that I will treasure most, because it was like a lovely special birthday as well. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't remember any. I hate breakfast in bed. So I don't suppose the kids did it very often, because just not me. I'd much rather get up and have breakfast. Yeah, I don't remember very much.
All right. I wondered if you remembered any noteworthy Mother's Day presents in the past.
Yeah, I do. I still have it on my bedside table. It's something Cello gave me when she was 9, and she's 23 now. And it's a little jar of Mother's Day coupons that she made for me that I've yet to redeem any of, because I loved it so much that I decided to keep it. But I was having a little flick through them before today just to remind myself of some of the things that she'd given me coupons for. And it was things like I could have the remote control for the television for as long as I wanted, or breakfast in bed was one of them, or I could have a hug for as long as I wanted one. And at the bottom of every note she's written, every coupon she's written, with no whinging or complaining, which suggests that I used to make her hug me longer than she wanted to a lot of the time, and she was going to offer me that gift of not complaining when I squeezed her too long or too tight. So that's my favourite one, and it's still there.
That's a lovely story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I remember one actually. It was a bike. And I think my youngest, Nicole, she was only about 2, so they actually got the bike seat as well. And she says, "Mummy, I'm not telling you, but we've got you a bike for Mother's Day and my birthday." Sometimes they end up being on the same day.
Nice.
She says, "We've got you a bike, but there's a seat for me, and they're going to put it on the back so we can ride together." So that was
Beautiful.
quite memorable. Yeah.
Bicycle built for 2.
Yeah.
And you've got a card. I might just take that. We might look at it later. It's something you want us to look at.
Yeah, that was the card that Hazel is going to show you was made by my daughter Jessica in 1988. But it says a lot about me and who I am as a person.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you.
I do remember having to put on a brave face quite a few times when presents came that had been made and all bought at the Mother's Day store. What were they thinking? I do have a card. I don't even know if it's Mother's Day, that says who can put the colour in our day. Oh, Mum. And I look at that and go, I can't believe that they thought that about me.
Okay, I'm wondering, what about being a mum did you learn from your mum?
My mum's very patient. She's very gentle. She's extraordinarily kind, and she's always very available. So I think they're the things that's certainly the things about her, some of the things about her that I value really very, very much, and what I've tried to bring to my kids. Yeah.
That's lovely.
I think because to me it looked like Mum was a hard worker, obviously, bringing up the kids on her own. So I think what I've learnt is hard work won't kill you. No matter how old you are, you can be the mother or the child. You can still put in an effort and do something. But then I know as I got older, Mum would say to me, she says, I pray for your kids all the time. So I think that's something that I've probably had echo in my head.
I think I probably learnt most of what I know as a mother from my mum. If I look back on my childhood, I very much spent a lot of time with my dad, and that's what I remember the most. But I came out as a young adult knowing how to cook and sew and knit and clean the house and do all those things. So she must have been a really good role model. She was never very expressive of affection, but I always knew she loved me. And she always had a proverb or a saying that for everything. My daughter still sometimes says, Granny would have a saying for that, wouldn't she? And she did teach me to say things like, if you don't stop arguing, I'm going to bang your heads together. Which I did say to my kids, but usually in fun. Whereas she probably meant it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering how it is now as a mum walking through COVID-19. How's that changed things for you?
It'll be different this year, and probably for the first time, I would say, since I've been a mother. This will be the first Mother's Day that Mum and I aren't together. So this is the first time she won't have spent Mother's Day with me and with her grandchildren. Our family tradition, I guess, is that everyone comes to us, and we usually have a very big, very vibrant, very happy, excited family table that would involve Fergus, Cello's boyfriend, if he wasn't already there. Certainly Gus would be there as well. You would sometimes be there with various members of your family. And my husband will cook a huge meal, a really big celebration meal, and Mum and Dad, of course, would be there from Sydney. So we'd all spend that time together. It's usually a very long, very relaxed afternoon together, talking and eating. And so I'm going to really, really miss not being able to hold her on Mother's Day and spend time with her on Mother's Day. And I know she's going to miss it too. So that's going to be the big difference this year, just not together. And we'll still do it. Jimmy, I'm insisting that Jim still cooks me something on Mother's Day. So we'll do it, but it'll just be the four of us, as it is at the moment every night of the week. So, not that different really, but still special and precious. Just no mum this time.
Well, when they introduced the isolation legally, is that the word? Legally, it was the Sunday the 15th of March. 12 p.m. I remember, because we were in Fiji and we were coming home on the 16th. So we missed out by one day. So we had to self-isolate for those 2 weeks. So being a mum, and Nicole and her husband and family were still over there. But my daughter Jessica was here. So being a mum to Jess, she went out and locked up our fridge, brought it all in and packed it into the fridge before we got home. So I've still had toilet paper.
Wow.
I haven't had to buy toilet paper at all.
That's wonderful.
She bought a big 16-pack, I think, and I still had some, so thank God for that.
Yeah.
But every day for 2 weeks, are you right, Mum? Do you need anything? And she'd surprise us and bring us coffees back as well. So she was a godsend. She's got a beautiful act of kindness and a beautiful, thoughtful spirit, and that really blossomed, I think, in her through that.
My eldest daughter and her three girls just live at Wattle Grove, and I usually go there every Monday and get them off to school, or one of them off to school, and then have a nice day to myself up there. But then I cook dinner or take them to basketball, and of course I can't do any of that. So I haven't seen them since about the 21st of March. So that's over a month now. So that's very different. I've tried to keep in contact by phone more than I would normally. I worry a bit about my daughter because she's working from home, and I don't think that's particularly good for her. She gets the work done, but it's so socially isolating. She's not really someone who likes to be at home all the time. So I try and support her by talking on the phone as much as I can. And we certainly would have been planning a trip to Queensland to see my other children and grandchildren, probably this next month. But of course, that can't happen. So we're sort of saying we possibly won't see them until Christmas. I don't know. It's a long time. And my daughter-in-law up there, because her parents were in Menai, I said, she liked living in Queensland until they said she couldn't come home. So you sort of feel a bit, even though you are apart, you're a bit it's just a bit further when you know you can't actually.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about it.
Indeed. Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, finally, I'm just wondering if there's a Bible passage or perhaps a rhythm of life or a pattern or something that's helping you at the moment to get through this time.
One of my new routines at the moment is FaceTiming with mum and dad every day. So we spend at least half an hour every day talking and seeing each other. So I'm so grateful for the technology that allows us to do that. It's wonderful. It's a really way of staying connected with them and knowing exactly how well they are and how everything's travelling for them at home. They get to see us, they get to see the kids or the kid, and it's good. It's really a wonderful thing. The verse, I guess, that probably resonates really well with me. This is a verse I feel like God has given me at times throughout my life when I've needed it. He reminds me that this verse exists or this passage exists, and it's one that I'm reading pretty much daily at the moment, and it's Psalm 62 verses 1 and 2, and it's, "My soul finds rest in God alone, my salvation comes from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, he is my fortress, I shall never be shaken." I just find that extraordinarily encouraging at the moment.
Well, I've got a scripture that I'm often turning to because the escarpment won't let me forget it. About 2 years ago, just down here at Russellvale, I was just waiting for my daughter, Jess, and I looked up there and it was just, I don't know, I actually saw a picture of God's hand come out of the mountain. So I went home and I started looking for the word mountain, and Psalm 121 came up. It's like I look up into the hills, and where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. So I've sort of learnt a bit of it, but every time now I walk and see the escarpment, it's just an automatic thing that this verse comes out in my mouth. I thank God for that. And then our routine, I think, is I think when they were showing the pandemic stuff on the TV all that time, we just had to turn it off. And then Pete mentioned something about praying at 7 o'clock one time. Well, we've just continued doing that. So now we just don't watch TV at night. We might watch a bit of the news, but we turn it off and we sit here and pray. So.
What about you, Linda? Do you have a verse or a practice that's helping you at the moment?
A few. I'm an introvert, so this sort of time suits me quite well, actually. And I have just felt a real peace in my heart, and some of that comes from what Pete's been teaching us about silence and spending time with God, and that's been really good. But in the 70s, we used to sing lots of scripture, and this verse came back to me from that. It's in Habakkuk, and it says, from the Authorised Version, something like, "Though the fig tree does not blossom and there be no fruit on the vine, though the produce of the olive fail and the fields bear no food, though the flock be cut off from the fold and there be no herd in the store, yet will I rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. God, the Lord, is my strength." And I just think, He's got it. And we just have to keep our eyes on him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful, wonderful verses. Thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you so much to all three of you for speaking to us today on Mother's Day. And we've really learnt a lot and really enjoyed hearing from you today. So thank you so much. I've got a little thing of flowers to give you, so I might just pass those over now.